Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. A few weeks ago, I made a video where I talked about inflation, and it turned out to be quite a lengthy video. While I'm going to apologise now, this video is going to be a long one as well. But I need the length really to fully explore the issue, and I've cut so much out just to get it down to this shorter version. I could have talked for hours on this subject. Today, I'm going to talk about the current cost of living crisis. Now it's not specific to any country. This is affecting virtually the whole of the world at the moment. And let's be honest, it's getting worse. The cost of living crisis, let's sum it up. The price of things, the cost of things is going up. And we're finding that it's going up quite often on a weekly basis. But at the same time, the amount of money coming in, so our income, it's either growing at a slower rate or it's just not growing at all. The impact of this, it's very, very simple. People are struggling to feed their families. People are struggling to pay their bills. People are struggling to pay for energy. And this impact, it's affecting those that are less well off, more than those that have got money in the bank, more than those that can afford to cover these increases. Now, I've got a couple of pieces of challenging data for you. In a survey of 11 developed countries, so these are some of the more affluent countries, 1 in 4 people are struggling financially. That's 25% of the people that live in developed countries are struggling to meet their basic needs. In the UK, 1 in 7 adults say they cannot afford to eat every day. That's nearly 15% of adults in the UK. And that figure, it's increased by 57% since January of 2022. And I'm recording this in September of 2022. So 9 months, and it's increased 57%. A lot of parents, they are going without food. They're doing that to make sure that their children have food to eat. And remember, I've already said this, and I may repeat this a number of times. It's the less well-off families that are suffering. These are the families where most of their income, it's already being used to pay the bills and to buy food. Imagine that you're already paying out everything that comes in to cover things like your rent, your food, your energy. The prices go up. Where is that extra money going to come from to pay it? You're already spending everything you've got. There is a saying that I've heard a lot of people say, and it really annoys me. To be honest, it pisses me off, and I don't like to use strong language in my videos. They say to you, it's less than a cup of coffee a day. That's true. That increase, it's less than a cup of coffee a day. But if you can't afford that coffee anyway, if you haven't been having it because you can't afford it, they're not helping you. What they're showing is that they're arrogant, they're rude, and to be honest, they just don't care or understand. Now it's a very scary place to be. A lot of people who are suffering because of this, they are frightened. They don't know what's going to happen. They're very anxious, and it's really affecting their mental health as well as their physical health. What I'm now going to do is we're going to look at some of the causes, though, of this crisis. And there's many causes, and I'm only touching on a very small amount. This is something, it's actually been going on for years, and it's just all come together at the moment. The first cause, and this is the one that at the moment we're blaming everything on, coronavirus pandemic. It's so easy to blame everything on this. It's a bit of a lazy solution though, isn't it? Because the situation, it's more complex than that. Yes, the coronavirus response around the world has made things worse. During lockdowns, governments, they tried to stimulate the economies. They tried to keep cash flowing. Whilst in the lockdown, demand for things, it actually was flat. Apart from toilet roll, everybody needed and wanted toilet roll, didn't they? And that meant that prices, they were either falling or they didn't change much. That was helping everyone. They could afford to buy things. As the world has opened up again, well, the demand for stuff, the demand for food, the demand for products has increased, which is good for the economy because obviously we're going to be selling more. But the supply chain, that's all the steps that things go to from being made through to being sold, well, that's not recovered yet. This means that companies, they're not able to make enough of their products to meet the demand. And when demand is higher than supply, prices go up. And that's what we're seeing now. Another contributing factor, the war in the Ukraine. So it's another area where it's easy to blame everything on it. But again, this isn't the full cause. It's one of many. When Russia invaded the Ukraine in February of 2022, there were a number of follow-on effects. Most of the world placed sanctions on Russian oil and gas. Now, this disrupted the amount of oil and gas available to make energy, because Russia is one of the highest suppliers of oil and gas, certainly to Europe, but also to a lot of the world. This means that the demand for oil and gas, that increased, supply wasn't there, prices go up. It's the supply and demand scenario. A result of this, between February and May of 2022, the price for natural gas increased by more than 168%. And it's not showing any sign of slowing down. Everything we use, everything we see, everything that we touch, there's all got energy involved in it. Now, that could be for heating, that could be for fuel, that could be for power to create it. The price of oil and gas going up means the price of the energy goes up. Price of the energy goes up, well, that affects your home. You know, you're going to have to pay more for home gas and electric. But it also means everything that's made using any form of electricity, any form of fuel, that goes up. Anything that's transported, well, the price of petrol and diesel's gone up, so the transport prices, they go up. Everything's increasing, and it all adds on top of each other as well. There's another impact from the Ukraine. The Ukraine is a large contributor of wheat and grains to Europe and other parts of the world. As a direct result of this invasion, wheat prices, which is what a lot of food is based on, have increased by over 40%. Sunflower seed oil, that's increased by over 60%. The result, food prices go up. And remember, the people that are most affected are those already struggling to pay for food to live, and they are having to go without meals. Another impact, slowdown in China. The coronavirus lockdowns in China, they had a massive impact on the availability of items. A lot of the world's products are made or have parts made in China. Factories, they're shut down, or if we're lucky, they're working at a lower level. Port workers, well, they're not able to load and unload ships as fast as they used to. China also introduced reductions on international exports. Now, they did this because they wanted to address rising prices in China. You can understand that. But the result, the rest of the world are the ones paying the cost for that. China is solving its domestic problems by passing the costs on to other countries. But let's be honest, China, they're not the only ones doing that. Another example is India. They've placed a ban on the export of wheat. And bear in mind that India supply roughly 1/3 of the global wheat supply. And they're doing that because, again, they want to focus on making sure they've got food there and that the costs are controlled for the people in their country. Inflation's another contributing factor. Yes, I know really a lot of this is about inflation because inflation is just the prices going up. And as I've already said, I've already made a video where I talk about inflation. One of the things that are really relevant for this discussion is that higher inflation drives higher inflation. It's a vicious circle. So workers, they know that prices are going to go up. So they know that they need to earn more to cover the extra costs that they're going to be having. Because of that, they go to their bosses and they demand higher pay. That higher pay means that the companies need to charge more for their products because they need to cover that higher wage bill. That then leads to higher prices for things being sold. It's a vicious circle. Price goes up. Employee wants more money. Company pays it. Price of products goes up. So prices go up. And it just keeps going round and round. The final area we're going to touch on in this is interest rates. One of the things that central banks are doing is they're raising interest rates and this is done as a way to try and control inflation. It leads to higher costs for borrowing money. Now, that's things like higher costs for mortgages, higher costs for credit cards, and all this in turn, it means that if an owner's mortgage has gone up, they're going to want to charge more rent to cover the extra cost. Yeah, seems sensible, but let's think about this. People that are renting are likely to be the ones that are less well off. The increased rent has to come from the same budget as their current household bills and food. And as we've already said, most of them, they do not have any extra budget left anyway. So not only is their food going up, not only is their energy going up, but also their rent is going up. They're being hit three ways. The impact of this, less affluent families have less money for food. Less affluent families do not eat. There's also an impact at a country level. A lot of countries have borrowed money, and especially to cover a lot of the coronavirus payments. If the interest rates are going up, that means the amount of money that the country has to pay also goes up. You know, they've got to pay off the interest, and if the interest rate is higher, well, that means higher interest payments. Now, for most countries, it seems to be not too bad. But for less well-off countries, especially things like developing nations, they may not be able to get the extra revenue to cover that extra interest. The risk is that countries may default on their debt payments. So I'd said that was going to be my last one, but I thought I'll throw this in, this bonus. The US dollar is currently very strong, and a lot of international trade is carried out in US dollars. This strong dollar means that countries are buying less dollars for their local currency. The impact of this, the cost to import increases. You know, if you're paying more for your dollars, that means that something that cost $50 still costs $50, but you're having to pay more to buy those dollars. So again, the cost of import going up, that means that the price of the end goods also goes up. We're back to that vicious circle, aren't we? But governments, they are trying to help. Things like increasing interest rates. The aim, make it more expensive to borrow money so people won't buy as much. That should reduce demand, which should lead to reduced inflation. But it's a shame it doesn't seem to be working yet, does it? Many countries, they're providing subsidies for energy, but it's only a short-term solution. It doesn't do anything to address the root cause. Once the subsidy goes away, the price, it will shoot up again, and that will further drive inflation. Now, short-term, a lot of the actions that have been taken, they do seem fine. They seem sensible, but to be honest, in the longer term, they're only going to make things worse. As the old saying goes, the poor, they get poorer, the rich, they get richer. A longer-term view is needed. Governments, this should be encouraging more energy-efficient building. If you don't need as much energy to warm or cool a building, you're decreasing how much it costs you. Governments should be investing in public transport. They should be making more buses and more trains available. They should be making public transport more affordable. Getting people onto public transport, it will reduce the cost of fuel. But this only works if the public transport is affordable and meets the needs of every member of society. Governments could also reduce taxes on the day-to-day essential food items. You know, things like fruit and veg. Make them more affordable. People can buy them. People can buy more of them. People who are struggling, they'll be able to afford the essentials. They'll be able to eat. There are things that each of us can do as well. And most of these, they're very small, simple changes that we can be making straight away. It's things like looking at the food we buy. Can we reduce the amount of food waste? You know, things like where we're having a meal and we might cook for 3 people, but only 2 people eat, and we throw food out. Can we reduce that? If we're not going to be eating something, well, why cook it? Can we reduce energy usage? You know, it's the simple things, turning off lights. Can we walk to the nearby shops to get small shopping items rather than jumping in the car? Me and my wife, the local supermarket, it's about a 20-minute walk from here. During the week, we often need to go and get bread. You know, prior to the current situation, we would just drive down. It takes 5 minutes, we're there and back. Now, we just use the opportunity. We walk down. It's actually nice to get out in the open air, have that little bit of exercise as well. but it's a little change that can be made very easily. The situation at the moment, it just looks so bad. And this is my opinion only, it's going to get worse over the next few months. It will eventually turn a corner. Things will start to improve. But that improvement, again, my personal opinion, it's likely going to take years before we really start seeing things getting better. But they will in the long run. What we need to do now is focus on making the small changes we're able to do. Try and reduce what we use. Try and reduce what we waste. Try to take a bad situation and to start to turn it around. Now, I would normally say I hope you've enjoyed this video. I don't think the current situation is something anybody should be saying they're enjoying. If they are, there's something really wrong with them. Things are bad. What are your tips to try and reduce the impact of increasing prices? What things are you doing? As I've already said, me and my wife, we walk to the shops where we can. What other things could people be trying? Please drop your comments and suggestions down below. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.